That's my Joe. His brother asked him to come over, alone on a Sunday afternoon. Now, Joe often goes over with the family, but alone? What could it be about? No one else here? Could something be wrong? No, of course not.
Happy birthday. How'd you get over here? I mean, I've never had a...
Well, what a relief. Joe was really anxious. And whether he knows it or not, when his emotions react, I react. Because I am Joe's stomach. Joe's wife, his children, his mother, sister-in-law, all in on the plot. A surprise birthday party. Looks like a good time for the family. Also looks like a lot of work for me. Parties usually are. Let me tell you why. I'm part of an intricate system that keeps Joe alive and well, the digestive system. Or as the doctor might say, the gastrointestinal tract. This remarkable system begins here in Joe's mouth, with glands that produce saliva, and teeth that chew to start preparation of food for digestion. Then the food passes down the esophagus, directly to me, the stomach. My main jobs are storage, mixing, and preparation. After I've done my work, I send the food through an opening called the pyloric valve into the first part of the small intestine. This is called the duodenum. The food then continues through the small intestine into the large intestine, and the residue is eventually eliminated. This amazing digestive and absorption pathway is called the alimentary canal. Each step of the way, a special set of muscles moves the food along. But getting back to me, my exterior is a very beautiful shade of glossy pink. When I'm empty, I look like a deflated balloon. But when full, I'm big at the top and small at the bottom, like a bulbous letter J or a boxing glove. I'm a great convenience to Joe because I'm an elastic reservoir that holds and stores his food. Actually, I can hold about 2 pints. That may not seem like a lot, but for Joe, it's just right. In fact, Joe's dog stomach can hold 3 times as much because he gulps down his food with very little chewing and needs the extra space. And a cow's stomach can hold 30 times my capacity. Nature provides all that room for a bulky diet of hay and grasses. Unlike my neighbors, the lungs, kidneys, liver, and heart, who keep working 24 hours a day, I get my work done and then rest. As for my interior, its folds look like glistening velvet and contain some 35 million glands that release gastric juices. My glands, like little faucets, may give off as much as 3 quarts of gastric juices a day. Much of this is hydrochloric acid, which helps to break up and soften the food. This acid activates another of my secretions, the enzyme pepsin, which starts protein digestion. Without acid and pepsin, Joe would have a hard time with that steak he loves so much. Another secretion, lipase, acts to break down fats. My glands also secrete an enzyme called renin, which in the stomachs of babies and children turns milk into a soft, very digestible custard-like substance. Actually, the gastric juices are only a part of my story. And since it looks as though my job is beginning, let me show you exactly how I work for Joe.
Oh, wow.
Because this is a party, let's start with champagne. I take care of that quickly. Absorb a little of the alcohol, but send most of it right on to the small intestine. I work that way with water, too. Absorb a little and send the rest on its way into the duodenum. Joe has spotted some solid food. Ah, yes, peanuts and shrimp. No problem if you choose them well. The brain signals have started those gastric juices flowing, and my muscle system begins to mix up the appetizers. Now my muscular contractions, sweeping wave-like from top to bottom, mix the food with the gastric juices. After thorough mixing, the food becomes like a thick gruel, and the mixture goes to the pyloric valve, with little bits pushed through and larger bits bouncing back into the stomach. You see, I can push only small particles, bit by bit, into the duodenum. However, the process is repeated until the entire mixture is pushed on. I'm glad to see Joe taking it easy on the champagne, even if it is his birthday. Too much alcohol, and my flow of acid speeds up, as much as 3 times faster. This and other factors sometimes result in a condition commonly known as a hangover. Well, dinner has been announced, and now I get down to the hard work. I'm ready for this, but of course, there can be too much of a good thing. Overeating causes me to overwork, and I may just give up and quit for a while. Even so, those gastric juices will continue to pour in, expanding me and making Joe uncomfortable. You know, most people think of me as a violent churn, which manhandles everything that Joe swallows. Not so. As Joe eats dinner, I'll process the food in orderly fashion. First the appetizer, then meat, potatoes, vegetables, and dessert. Fat-free foods and carbohydrates I empty into the duodenum very rapidly, but proteins and vegetables can slow me down. Things like cabbage can keep me working for as long as 12 to 18 hours. Now that's too much work, and I could put in a protest. And persimmons? Well, if Joe should eat one, I might hang on to it for months. Fatty substances are another story, and too much of that butter can keep me working right through from meal to meal. Excess fat triggers that first part of the small intestine, the duodenum, to produce a hormone which slows my contractions. This is really self-protection, since the duodenum can't handle a big load of fat all at once. Of course, sometimes people like to season their food with spices like pepper and mustard. But did you know that the chemical irritants in pepper, and to a lesser degree mustard and horseradish, can turn me fiery red and swollen when they touch my lining? Joe's not overdoing it with the food today, and that'll make my job a little easier. I should be through working in from 2 to 4 hours. Well, Joe's really enjoying this meal, and I'm doing my job well. But have you noticed Joe's brother Jim being especially careful with his diet? He'd better. He has a stomach ulcer. How did that happen? I'll show you. Hydrochloric acid and pepsin break down protein. Now, my lining is made of protein, but is protected by a thick liquid, much as a firefighter protects himself with an asbestos suit. Of course, if the fire is too hot, it soon finds a weak spot, a defect in the asbestos, and the fireman is burned. Now, that's exactly what happened to Jim's stomach. Remember, the acid produced by the stomach is strong enough to eat into iron. Now, normally, it won't damage a healthy stomach wall. But Joe's brother had a way of getting upset, tense, and frustrated. His glands pumped out extra hydrochloric acid, which, with pepsin, was working to attack the lining of Jim's stomach. Day after day this happened, until finally a small weak spot gave way. The acid and pepsin literally ate right into the stomach lining and formed a wound. With ulcers, there's usually only one wound, but it can be from 1/8 of an inch to 1 inch or more in diameter. Jim's doctor warned him against cigarettes, alcohol, and other acid stimulants that could only aggravate the trouble and lead to more serious consequences. Actually, the majority of ulcers do not occur in the stomach at all, but in that first part of the small intestine, the duodenum. That's because it can't protect itself from excess acid as well as I can. But if Jim follows his doctor's orders about diet and medication, and most important, calming down, he'll be okay. Even I had a little ulcer once, but it went away almost as fast as it came. At that time, Joe was worried about exams in college, and this shot up the acid production and brought on a few twinges of pain. He thought they were from not eating well. Once the exams were over, he calmed down, my acid production went down, and I healed myself very quickly. We were lucky. You know, an amazing thing about the stomach is that if things really get serious, the surgeon can remove a part or all of it. I don't like to think about it, but many people have had parts of their stomachs removed. Some have even had the entire stomach taken out. Actually, my storage capacity allows Joe to get by on 3 meals a day, rather than the many small meals he'd need if I weren't around. The truth is, man doesn't really need a stomach to live. With a proper diet and vitamin supplement and controlled eating habits, the food can pass directly from the esophagus to the small intestine. Basically, I'm a real tough character. For instance, I can heal a scratch from a fish bone in 24 hours. My gastric juices kill off most of the bacteria in Joe's food. Of course, at times when we're away from home for a while, bacteria can cause problems. I may not be able to save Joe from the results, usually nausea and diarrhea. Even some bacteria at home slip by at times, and our intestines get pretty upset. But my biggest enemy is cancer. When there is any unusual pattern of digestion, such as persistent indigestion, excessive irregularity, any evidence of internal bleeding, or extreme loss of appetite or weight, a doctor should be consulted, since the most essential factor in recovery from cancer is early detection. I always hope Joe remembers that if I bother him for more than a day or two, he should see a doctor and at least have me checked over. In fact, if any severe pain in the stomach or chest area persists for more than a few minutes, he should call a doctor. Too many people suffer heart attacks, thinking they're merely stomach upsets. Ah, we're near the end of dinner now. And here comes a favorite of just about everyone, and especially my Joe. He loves ice cream. And that's okay with me, if he doesn't overdo it. Because when too much cold food or liquid is consumed too rapidly, my secretions slow up, the blood supply is decreased, and my muscles stop working. I could rest for a half hour or so until my temperature returns to a normal of about 99 degrees. But emotions can affect me too. In fact, whenever Joe or anyone gets angry and turns red, or gets scared and turns pale, we stomachs do the same. Really.
Very good.
And finally, the coffee. And in reasonable amounts, coffee doesn't bother me, although Joe could use a little milk to buffer the acid which caffeine stimulates. But when I talk about acid, I can't help thinking about more serious troublemakers, like nicotine and alcohol. They can really step up my acid production. Well, this meal is finished, and Joe's been kind to me. Actually, he's had all the nourishment he needs for now, and he's going to feel much better for having eaten sensibly, in spite of all the good things that were served. Of course, the best way that Joe can help me after a meal is to relax, take a little mild exercise. But that doesn't always happen. When Joe gets excited, I react with vigorous contractions, and my secretions may triple in volume. Fortunately, I'm equipped to handle these minor problems. But it looks like Joe Jr. is having a little trouble. In fact, overexcitement or eating unwisely can really make me decide to rebel. The best remedy in this case is for young Joe to lie down, relax, and give his stomach a chance to recover. Believe me, in most cases, we can take care of ourselves. Of course, at times when there's no other way, the brain sends out the signal, the abdominal and chest muscles squeeze in on me, the valve between me and the small intestine closes, and, well, you know the result. Too often, in cases of stomach discomfort, people resort to excessive medication. Even that old standby bicarbonate of soda can be a villain. It's rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream, and too much of it, too frequently, can place a burden on the kidneys. In fact, I've been called the most abused organ in the body, and probably I am. But I'm also accused of many things that don't originate with me at all. Motion sickness, which can make me queasy, results from upsetting the body's delicate balance system in the inner ear. Heartburn, for instance, is neither the heart nor the stomach burning. It's merely small amounts of hydrochloric acid irritating Joe's lower gullet or esophagus. Stomach rumbling. Well, rumblings in the small intestine, maybe. But the sound certainly doesn't come from me. However, a little extra air swallowed with food, or some carbonation from that drink, and I can cause a burp. Nervous stomach. Upset stomach. Weak stomach. Expressions that are used for just about any abdominal discomfort, and very often are not my fault at all. Well, Joe and I came through the festivities just fine, and we did have a happy birthday. I'll do my part to see that he has many more happy birthdays if he gives some thought to what I've just told you, such as taking it easy on things that step up my acid production: alcohol, cigarettes, excessive caffeine. Taking good, nourishing food in sensible amounts. Overeating or eating too rapidly can cause indigestion, or, another word for it, dyspepsia. Being careful of things that are hard to digest, especially fatty foods. Steering clear of those highly spiced irritants. Trying hard to keep worry and frustration at a reasonable level. Avoiding excessive medication of any kind. But most of all, seeing his doctor regularly and heeding his doctor's advice. But Joe's pretty careful, and with that kind of consideration, I can serve him with a minimum of trouble for his entire lifetime.